Look, before we talk beaches, before we talk buffets, before we talk all-inclusive, we need to talk about the one thing that decides whether your Cuba trip feels like a vacation, balcony, fuel. Because in Cuba, fuel is not just energy. Fuel is electricity. Electricity is air conditioning. Electricity is water pressure. Electricity is hot water. Electricity is refrigeration. And refrigeration, well, that's the difference between a buffet that's fine and a buffet that becomes limited at very specific hours for very obvious reasons. Now, if you're Canadian and you've booked Cuba, you're probably thinking, it's Cuba, sun, sand, great price. What's the worst that can happen? And here's the real question for 2026, the question almost nobody asks when they click Book Now. Will my resort have reliable power when I'm there? Let me be crystal clear. I am not here to tell you, don't go. Canadians go to Cuba for a reason. The value is hard to beat. I'm here to tell you something better than reassurance. I'm here to give you reality and a plan. Because the dirty secret in travel marketing is this: a resort can be open and still be operating on rationed comfort. Yes, many resorts have generators, but a generator without enough fuel is just a large, expensive piece of metal. So what does rations look like in real life? It looks like air conditioning that works until it doesn't. It looks like elevators that take a break. It looks like water pressure that comes and goes. It looks like hot water that shows up on its own schedule. It looks like Wi-Fi that disappears right when you're trying to message family. And it looks like excursions that suddenly become unpredictable, because the issue isn't the tour guide, it's the fuel for the bus. So here's what we're going to do in this video. No drama, no politics, no panic. I'll explain why regional oil supply pressure can ripple into Cuba's power situation. Then I'll translate that into what you'll actually notice at an all-inclusive, what breaks first, what usually holds, and what worst case really looks like. And finally, I'll give you a short checklist, the exact questions to ask your tour operator or hotel so you can pressure test the resort's backup power and fuel reality before you land. If you're traveling with kids, if you're going for a wedding, if you're going to unplug and recharge, this matters. Because nothing ruins recharge like sweating in the dark, waiting for the water to come back, and realizing the real currency of comfort isn't pesos, it's power. All right, let's break it down, starting with the one word that drives the whole story: fuel.
If you're a Canadian booked into an all-inclusive in Cuba, here's the uncomfortable truth. Your vacation quality increasingly depends on one thing you never see: fuel. Not beaches, not buffets, fuel. And when Venezuelan oil shipments get squeezed, the first thing that breaks in Cuba is not tourism, it's electricity, and then everything connected to electricity. Over the last few weeks, the U.S. has escalated enforcement actions targeting Venezuela-linked oil movements, including tanker seizures in the Caribbean and broader pressure on shadow shipping. This matters because Venezuela has been one of Cuba's key fuel lifelines, and when those flows get disrupted, Cuba's grid gets hit fast. Cuba does not have the luxury of a resilient power system. It runs on aging infrastructure, and fuel constraints can trigger long daily scheduled outages, plus occasional nationwide failures. And this is not just commentary. Canada's own travel advisory, updated January 15, 2026, warns that power cuts can be prolonged and that outages can last more than 24 hours. It also states that large resorts use generators, but fuel shortages may impact generator use and disrupt services like food service, running water, and hot water. That single line, fuel shortages impacting generator use, is the entire story for all-inclusive tourism in 2026. Now, you'll hear the reassuring version. Tourist areas are prioritized. Resorts have generators. Everything is normal. There is some truth there. Travel trade reporting has noted that airports and many resorts stayed operational during previous outage periods because they had backup generators. And Cuban tourism messaging to the Canadian market continues to emphasize that operations are running normally, with Canada a core market and a large number of airline seats scheduled for early 2026. But here's the reality. Operational is not the same as comfortable. A resort can be open, serving meals, and still deliver a noticeably downgraded experience when fuel gets tight. So what changes first at the all-inclusive level? What will you actually notice as a guest? When fuel is constrained, resorts begin rationing the invisible systems. The first thing that often degrades is air conditioning quality and reliability. It is not always a total shutdown. More commonly, it is weaker cooling, intermittent cycles, and certain buildings prioritized. Next comes water pressure and hot water, because pumps need steady power, and hot water systems and laundry are energy hungry. Then food consistency starts to slip. Canada's advisory explicitly warns that power outages and fuel shortages can lead to food spoilage, even in hotels. When refrigeration logistics and deliveries are stressed, the buffet becomes repetitive and timing becomes unpredictable. After that, you see knock-on effects like elevators being turned off during generator management, entertainment scaled back, and Wi-Fi becoming even less reliable than usual. Finally, excursions and transportation reliability become more hit or miss. Fuel shortages do not just affect the resort, they affect the entire island. Canada's advisory is blunt that shortages can make travel across the island extremely challenging, disrupt taxis and transport, and even strand travelers. The natural question is, can Cuba replace Venezuelan fuel? Mexico has been a critical partial cushion. Reuters reported that Pemex increased shipments to Cuba in 2024, about 20,100 barrels per day of crude plus 2,700 barrels per day of products, valued around $600 million based on filings. That helps, but it is not a magic switch. Pemex's ability and willingness to scale further is not guaranteed, and it does not instantly stabilize generation, transport, and logistics simultaneously. Here is the key operational point. Enforcement pressure does not need to stop all oil to create pain. It can force longer routes, raise shipping risk premiums, reduce reliable arrivals, and create sudden gaps that Cuba cannot cover quickly. That produces the exact pattern Canada warns about. Long daily scheduled power cuts, plus sudden longer outages, and resorts trying to keep the product together with generators whose fuel is finite. If you're going anyway, and many Canadians will, do it intelligently. Pick the property like an engineer, not a brochure reader. Ask your tour operator or hotel directly. Do you have generators for the full property or only essential areas? Is air conditioning continuous during outages? Do you have assured fuel supply arrangements for generators? Bring a small power outage kit, a flashlight or headlamp, a power bank, and basic medications and toiletries. Canada explicitly recommends bringing essentials because shortages are common. And adjust expectations. You are buying sun and warm water. You are not buying Swiss-level infrastructure reliability. My forward view for early 2026 is straightforward. Resorts will mostly remain open and functioning, but service volatility rises. Intermittent comfort, inconsistent amenities, and occasional real disruption. The key variable is fuel reliability, not tourism demand. And when you hear everything is normal, remember that Canada's advisory explicitly says resorts can be affected and that impacts are difficult to predict.